Hi, this is Shauna. Before we get to today's guest, I want to take a minute to learn more about you, the listener. We've put together a short survey at fueltalent.com/podcast to gather information on who's listening and to give you a chance to make suggestions and comments about the show. I want What Fuels You to be a great resource for you and your interests, and I hope these interviews give you practical advice along with inspiration for your career and life. Help us continue to serve you better by going to fueltalent.com/podcast. Thank you so much. Now let's start today's show. Hi, this is Shauna, the CEO and founder of Fuel Talent. One of the things I have loved most in my 25-year recruiting career has always been the stories that people tell. Stories of leadership, career choices, company ideas, and team building. My inspiration for starting the What Fuels You podcast came from being curious about people's lives and wanting to help share their stories. What path brought them to this place? What decisions did they make that led to failures and successes? Who influenced those decisions, and what lessons were learned along the way? I hope you enjoy the What Fuels You podcast. Today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast is Erin Papworth. Erin is the CEO and co-founder of Navit, the social and finance app that helps young earners find their personalized way to increased wealth. A two-time entrepreneur, she spent over a decade living and working overseas, managing multi-million-dollar programs and working for organizations like Johns Hopkins University, Doctors Without Borders, the United Nations, and the United States government. During that time, Erin experienced firsthand the decline of societies when young people have limited access to credit and financial markets. She became passionate about increasing access to financial systems for marginalized populations in order to help them grow intergenerational wealth. Welcome, Erin. Good to see you.
Hi, Shauna. Great to be here.
Okay, so I'm hitting you with some rapid fire. You ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, given you're like Miss International and you've been all over the world, I'm curious, more from a personal perspective, what's your favorite vacation you've ever taken?
Oh, I love this question. It's so hard. I was just for some reason I had to count how many countries I've been to, and I'm hitting 56 now. So
lucky.
It's ridiculous. To be fair, I cheated because Africa has so many countries in one that it's really easy to get a lot in one go. But I was just commenting that Turkey, Istanbul, and just kind of the coastline of Turkey was incredibly fabulous experience for me, just because it was so different. Yeah.
Dying to go. You have so many talents, but what is a hidden talent that we might not know about?
Oh my, I like, very cheesy, but I like to rap. Not any of the like really good stuff.
Literally rap?
No, like I can do the first CD of Hamilton and like 90s rap, not real stuff.
That is so funny.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's a skill. Okay. What have you read, listened to, or seen, I guess maybe during COVID or this past year, that you would highly recommend?
Oh man.
Besides Hamilton.
That was definitely one. Well, I'm a mom of a 10-year-old. So we kind of got into, which I probably wouldn't have otherwise, but I was thoroughly enjoyed. Every Friday night we would do a Marvel movie. So we did all 20, 6 of them.
Wow.
Throughout COVID. Yeah, it was definitely intense. And I feel like I am definitely a good mother.
That's what I was about to say. I hope my kids actually don't listen to this, because now I'm feeling like a lame mom.
You're like, no.
I'm like, I haven't watched one Marvel movie, let alone 26. That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
If you could teleport somewhere today, where would you go and with who? And you don't have to say your son. So it's you can leave him at home. That's fine.
Thank you. I love him, but maybe I would.
Yes.
Anywhere in history or just anywhere currently?
Anywhere in history, anywhere.
Okay. Yeah. I want to go to the future, but really I love history. So I would teleport probably, now that we're talking about Hamilton, to the American Revolution and really see how it really worked, and really, I don't know. I love to meet the founding fathers and see, and where the women were. I'm really curious of what the women were doing.
Do you think they were like us, or they were not? I mean, I'm always so curious about that, because I know women were put in their place in such a different way, how they needed to show up. Right. And it's crazy. Now I meet so many powerful women, and I'm like, these women might were powerful, but they weren't like necessarily given a voice.
Totally. Oh, I think they were the entire machine behind the action.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And the Jane Addams of the world and all that, you hear about it. But what I'm curious of is like, was there any influence in arguing for women's rights at the time? Like, where was their voice,
Yes.
at all?
And what were the like women, if you get together with your girlfriends for drinks or for brunch or something, what were those conversations?
Yes, totally.
Like,
I bet they were talking about rights and all this stuff too. They were probably reading the same stuff.
Totally. Okay. Is there an app, besides Navit, but is there an app that you just can't live without that you use super frequently?
That's interesting. Well, we have a business, so Slack is definitely, I feel like attached to the hip on Slack. In terms of fun, personal stuff, I would say, let me look actually. Other than Navit, I should definitely plug Navit.
I know. Well, we will. We're going to get into it. I'm super excited.
My son found Peachy. Do you know this? It's hilarious. I mean,
but I need to know.
Well, it's like photo editing, but people that care about being influencers make themselves look really great. He just goes through and we make ridiculous, like us look ridiculous, like expanded face. Like,
I need to check it out. So Peachy, Peachy, Peachy.
Chy. Yeah.
CHY. Yep. Okay, I'm in. Yep. All right. This is my last question. Although I could do this all day with you.
So fun.
What is the best concert that you've ever been to?
Oh, my first concert was Whitney Houston.
Shut up.
I'm not lucky. I was young and my dad took me and he put me, we were in the like near the stage, kind of in the, standing part. And he put me on his shoulders and she sang like eye contact to me. I believe the children are the future.
I love Whitney Houston, of course. I believe the children. Are you kidding? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love her so much.
I don't know how you.
Actually, that documentary made me really sad though, because she was a huge part of my childhood. Like I love Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
Oh, what a great
She
first
and I
concert.
were born on the same day.
How old were you like at the time? And where are you from even? I don't think you and I have ever discussed this.
Exactly. I must have been like 8 or 9. I was like right when that song meant something. And I grew up in Portland, Oregon. But she and I shared the same birthday too.
I did know this. So Portland. So you grew up, were you like, I don't know why I have it in my mind that you were like a little mini entrepreneur, like a little mover and shaker.
What
were you into when you were a kid?
I was definitely, my dad used to say he didn't know what to do with a girl. So he just raised me like a boy. So I definitely did a lot of sports. Like that was a thing.
It should be. I'm a big fan of pushing kids towards sports.
Completely. And and team sports. So it helped me. I was always the point guard or the setter. Like I definitely gravitated towards telling people what to do, which my team would now say comes in handy.
Yes.
Has been historically. I also I really, history and books. I was kind of a nerd. I would go to camp and, read books as we were walking to different places.
I love it. Did you have an idea back then of like what success meant to you? Like, were your parents successful? And I guess given your business, did you have a relationship with success linked to money?
Yeah, it's interesting. Great question. And we talk a lot about money stories. I watched my father build a company. He was an entrepreneur too. In my young years, he was a CFP, but then he started a healthcare finance company. And I watched him go from, in the phases that I have been in the last couple of years, really like pushing and, a lot of extra work and a lot of pressure, and then I watched him succeed and then exit the company in my childhood. So up until like for college. So yeah, I definitely saw what it was. What was interesting about that is I saw the masculine version of it, and having my own journey now. Obviously I had the genetics and the kind of propensity towards it, but it's definitely been interesting to kind of define my own path through entrepreneurship and how I want to engage in my feminine version of it. Cause it was really interesting.
It is interesting. And who I guess inspired you when you were a kid? I mean, from teachers to coaches to your parents.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah. I have a very diverse parent situation. So that was my father. And then my mother was a teacher and very caring, very giving, very kind of community oriented. And my stepmother was this incredible professional OBGYN, went back to medical school in her 30s because she was trying to say women could be, at the upper echelons of professionalism. She marched on Washington for the women's rights. So I had this incredible breadth of influences, like adult influences that were very diverse, a female with a career and highly skilled professional, a teacher that was giving back to society, an entrepreneurial father. So those were, I look back now and I've taken pieces of all of them into who I am. And then of course, teachers. I think I had an incredible world history teacher that was the best teacher I ever had, that taught me that I could be really good at something, which was nice.
Yeah. I always love hearing stories of teachers because I think that it's like just such an incredible career for someone to choose, and people don't realize the influence, positive and negative. Totally. You also hear the stories of people putting doubt into children's minds about their capabilities, but when someone inspires you in that way. And so coming from Portland, how did you end up at Loyola Marymount? I actually looked at that school too, coming from Seattle.
Oh yeah. Ironically, so my mother's side, not the other two, were really religious. And so I went to a Christian school. And by the time I was in high school, I was always questioning things and kind of rebellious in my intellect and pushing back. So part of the going to Loyola was to learn theology from a different perspective. And it wasn't that vastly different, but at the time Catholicism felt different. So the Jesuits were like this incredible environment for me to learn, intellect and theology and the history of different religions in the world. And it was LA, and it was far enough away from Portland, but still on the East Coast, on the West Coast. And it was great.
Would you do it again the same way? Would you attend that school?
Probably not. I think LA was really intense for me, coming from little Portland, Oregon, and also, with the insecurities that you have as a young female and surrounded by incredibly beautiful people.
Mm-hmm. LA is crazy. I just got back from LA literally last night, and
amazing.
I was visiting friends, and I was like, this is like the beautiful people everywhere. You have to have a lot of confidence, and especially today where that's such a focus for people, like the outside versus the inside.
Yes. And thank God at that time, social media wasn't what it was, because I would have been a hot mess if
all of us would have been. Are you kidding?
Yeah. So sorry for all the young men and women that are navigating that world. But I ended up, Loyola was amazing for two reasons. One, I had this incredible South Sudanese professor who taught basically colonial African history, and we went to Oxford together on a study abroad. And he taught at Oxford, with the Rhodes Museum and
that's incredible.
The incredible history. I really got an incredible global perspective, which sparked my interest in Africa. And then also it was this incredible place where we were in. So I'm old enough that I was in LA when 9/11 happened. And of course, the flights that hit, at least two of the flights that hit the World Trade Centers, or at least one of the Pentagon, and the other one was coming to LA. So I saw firsthand kind of the shutdown, and, we were completely shut down. There was National Guard. And it gave me this perspective of, oh, wait, this is what happens when governments kick in and military action occurs. So in retrospect, I got so much into political science and history and international development that maybe I probably should have gone to a school that didn't focus on theology and film.
Right. It was in LA, maybe somewhere in DC or on the East Coast. Yeah, that DC, makes sense. Georgetown. What were you studying? I mean, what was your focus and what was your intention around that choice at the time?
Yeah. So I started, I didn't know at, 7, I was 17. Yeah, exactly. I was so young. So I started my dad was like, just do business because that's kind of catch all. I got into that a year or two. And that was actually a personal awakening for me to be like, I don't want to do this, but I don't want to let him down. And it took me 2 years. I know it took me 2 years to tell him. And he was which, it's funny in retrospect, he was so amazing about it. So I did a minor in business, but I ended up I got into journalism, and I really wanted to be this is where it sparked, right? I wanted to be a war correspondent, which, Again,
huge admiration that you even like have the confidence or the courage to pursue something like that.
No, it's like my prefrontal cortex was not fully formed. And I thought going to war zones would be a really good idea. So I did an English writing major because they didn't have journalism and communications.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so right out of school, I mean, thinking about money and how to kind of pay your way,
Yeah.
what was your strategy for like survival and a career path?
So that senior year after Oxford and having done a lot of political science and history, I applied to intern at NAFTA in DC. Like the plan was international development or diplomacy, who knew at the time. But I went, I'm not sure I've told you this right.
You might have.
Yeah, it's crazy. My stepmother gave me a trip because she was the one that introduced travel to me. She gave me a trip anywhere in the world. She wanted to go to China. SARS was just happening. So that was, nope.
Remember how scary that was?
Yeah.
SARS?
Do you remember?
Oh yeah. All of those. Now I'm like COVID schmovid. I'm like,
right. Like, yeah. What's this? Oh, now I understand why they were wearing masks over there and that kind of fun. But because of the Oxford trip, I said, well, what about South Africa? What about Africa? And so we did South Africa, we did Cape Town, and then we went up to Botswana, which is this incredible gem of a country in this, center of Southern Africa. And we did safaris. And so the third safari lodge, I was bored because I was 21 and I had a lot of energy. And in the safari world now, it's like, oh, of course, this is what you do. In the morning, you go out on a game drive, you see all these incredible animals, you come home, you eat, you nap, you have a siesta because it's 100 degrees. And why would you go out in the day? And there are a bunch of 40-year-olds like me that want to sleep. And then you go out again, you eat, and then you go out on another game drive because that's when the animals are active. But by like lodge 3, I'm this like energetic, I need to run. I want to exercise, young 21-year-old. And I was like, I'm bored. Everyone fell asleep. I was like, I'm going to go in the back and see what's going on. And like with everyone, like talk to someone. So I went in the back, everyone, of course, the staff were all asleep too, but there was this random guy who's a white South African dude who was fixing his Land Cruiser or Land Rover. And we got like in this big discussion and he taught me how to drive stick on the wrong side of the road in the desert. But he ended up being the safari lodge owner. And he said,
so you made friends with him.
I made friends with him. And he said, what are you doing with your life? I said, I'm going to DC. And he, it was 2003. So it was like, it was pretty like, South Africa, Mandela only became president in 94. So it was close enough to the fall of apartheid that there was sensitivity, and the US had been a part of that, by sanctioning them. So he kind of was like, you Americans, neo-colonialists, you don't have a clue how things actually work. You go, use your power to colonize our countries, and you don't actually know what the root causes of our problems are. And I was like, oh, you're right. I have no idea. And he ended up being the safari lodge owner, and he said, come back and run my safari lodge.
So at 21,
yes.
You're like, I don't really know what I'm doing.
No clue. And no clue. I mean, it was total.
So you're 21. So you did that for how long? And I know that you ended up getting a master's in public health from Tulane. Yeah. Was that something that was needed to continue on?
So I jumped over I did the safaris for 9 months, and I realized I knew at the time even from college, I was applying to work overseas and with USAID or all these, State Department, all these things. But what they wanted was, 5 years of experience and a master's, and I didn't have any of that. So my thought was, I'll get over to Africa, I'll work, I'll see if I can hop over and get more experience in health or education or something, which is exactly what I did. So, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the U.S. government was putting a lot of money into HIV, and Botswana at the time was their first big grant cycle. And so I hopped over and I started working in healthcare. And then I met a guy who was like, look, this is so silly. Doctors Without Borders, these like humanitarian aid groups, they love safari lodge managers because running a safari lodge is just like running a refugee camp, except your clients are not paying $1,000 a night, but all the supply chain, the staffing, the security, the radios, all that's very similar. So
lots of transferable. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hopped over that 23, I hopped over and started working with Doctors Without Borders. And then, yes, I did a master's because I felt like, Doctors Without Borders was this incredible PhD in running a small health system.
Can you tell me, because obviously we've all heard about Doctors Without Borders, but
yeah.
if I guess your son or my kids are listening and they're like, well, that sounds cool. Like, what is it in a sentence? Like,
Absolutely. So Doctors Without Borders provides medical care in typically conflict zones. They can do it with other things like chronic diseases, but they come in and they basically supplement the health system when the health system is crumbling in some way, shape, or form. And I went to 2 war zones. One of their tricks is that, they can, I basically in Darfur, we were running the entire health system of a refugee camp of like 70,000 people. So that means water and sanitation, providing medical care. We had outpatient, inpatient, we had doctors and nurses, nutrition, immunization for kids. Like it really, all this stuff we talk about with COVID,
it's incredible.
Health systems that you were basically running it. Yeah.
And what were you doing? Because I know you're not a nurse, not a doctor.
No.
And so is it more like you're going to help facilitate and move things through and make sure everyone's needs are getting met? Like, are you actually, what's your job?
Yeah, I was a logistician. So exactly. I did all the logistics. So all the supply chain.
What an incredible, and do you make money doing that?
Yes. That was your original question about money. Yes. You do make money. You don't make tons, but what it ends up being is you don't spend any. Your entire life is paid for. They're doing all the transport. You get a stipend a day, you get paid and like a per diem. They send you on holiday every 6 weeks because you're in crazy places. Like I went to Zanzibar and like really amazing places.
So cool.
So you definitely leave with money. It's not like you're making.
You leave with money and then it's based, like where's the business based out of and where are all the other people that are working for Doctors Without Borders? All over the world or are these mostly Americans? No,
it's all over the world. I was really lucky. Well, that's the best part about these things. Like, so they have offices in a bunch of countries. There is an American office in New York, but I've worked for the French and the Dutch. So, but I worked for people, Germany, Holland, France, Africa, African diaspora.
You could literally have been like, okay, I did that. And now I'm gonna either just raise my son. You could have done nothing else and been like, look at my life story. And of course, now you move on to go back and get a master's in public health. Like you don't kind of halfway do things, I don't think. No. Like, well, let me just double down.
Well, especially in my 20s, can I say God, wow. I was driven on a weird level just to
it's insane.
Test myself. Yeah.
I think a lot of people read about these things or think about these things, but you were actually doing them. And was it hard for you to find people who were like-minded? Like, you know what I mean? You go back to talk to your friends, no offense to the friends from high school or whatever,
no, bless them.
You're the friend who's like, and I have a friend who's living in Botswana. It's crazy.
I'm definitely the crazy friend. Yeah. But what you end up happening is you find like-minded people along the way, right? So I have some of my best friends are from that time period, from these different countries. And I really literally could go to so many countries around the world and have a good friend there that I had some experience with. Coming back here in my 30s after that, 12 years of these experiences it took me a couple of years to kind of reorient to, what's my identity now? Who am I? Like, what is this
beyond life? Identity? Like, where do you get your, I guess your jolts of energy and inspiration? Because you're like, oh, here I am walking through Whole Foods and whatever.
All this opulence and abundance. Yes.
Yes. It's so just
my crazy brain started a company instead.
Yeah. So how soon after, I guess, coming back and after that whole long 12-year, nuts life experience, did you decide to start Navit? And what's the origin story of the company?
Yeah. So to start there, I have to jump from, I did my master's. I went back to Africa and then I was not in war zones. I really worked for the US government and Johns Hopkins University where we implemented programs. So we were really looking at, how do you create behavior change programs and measure disease prevalence to prove to a given country's health department or ministries of health that they should fund services for marginalized populations. So we were really looking at sexually transmitted diseases. So a lot of really marginalized groups that no one really wanted to talk about, like female sex workers and injecting drug users and stuff. So that was incredible because what it gave me was an understanding of the economic system, different economic systems. We have such a credit heavy country, right? We have a lot of the ability to make a lot of money because of our banking, the structure of our banking system, our ability to get loans. But in cash-based societies, that's a whole nother ballgame. And if you don't have a labor market, both men and women participating meaningfully in the labor market, you really have incredible pressure on your economic system to not grow. So I really like birth control, like preventing too many pregnancies, like getting children educated to a certain level, men and women educated, like really it directly correlates to the GDP of a country over time. So I got this really
fascinating,
deep understanding of how economic systems work and financial systems and how important financial systems are. So it was rooted. I mean, it sounds kind of like a crazy jump to go then into a financial technology, but that experience over there just really showed me how important navigating a financial system is and how behavior change works. That was the other thing that I learned over there, because we set up systems that got people from high risk for different diseases to different incremental behavioral shifts and knowledge and access to services and peer education that literally prevented them from getting diseases over time and kind of was a sustainable model for behavior change. So those are the foundations for NAVIT eventually.
But for sure, because now you've got, now you're a technology like fintech company, but it could have easily been that you just said, let me consult, low income. You could have taken so many different routes. Yes. And I like that you took a route that's scalable and that can touch more people, can have more impact.
Yes. That was really
through technology. Truly, like there's a lot of different people trying to kind of help, but this is like a platform.
Well, and that's a great point, because I consciously did that. Like I saw what I love. I think there's a place for philanthropy and nonprofits, but I saw that nonprofits don't have sustainable models that can really make economic change over time. They're dependent on grants and funding from whatever source they have. And I really feel passionately at the end. I helped write a university textbook chapter on public-private partnerships. It's so silly, but that model of social mission driven and social impact businesses that have a profit motive, I really believe that has to be, that is the way to really change incrementally society, because you need that sustainability and the scalability, to your point, to be able to actually make an impact on enough of the population to see change over time.
Right. So that was the origin story of like how you thought of the idea, but then what? So then you're like, how do I fund it, and how to find humans to do this business with you? Yes,
exactly. So I think what was happening at the time when I came back was, I should say, in Africa, part of watching the economic system over there is I saw what peer-to-peer payments did, like this mobile payment world. Like they were one of the first, continents, because they don't have a strong banking system, that they used phones like, MTN or AT&T and T-Mobile started doing money transfers. Like, so I could send you credit on AT&T for $50, and then you could go to an AT&T office and get that in cash. It was the first real mobile payment system that really revolutionized a cash-based society. So I'd seen what technology could do. And then of course, technology, when I came back here, I came back in 2015. It was revolutionizing, at the time Mint was the big thing, but it was revolutionizing how we were having conversations. And then eventually Venmo came in 2018, and there were all these changes in technology.
Yeah. Interesting. And so what is the exact business model?
Yeah. So at the time I've seen these technological changes, but I was also seeing this incredible burden that young people have on low financial literacy rates. And they took out of our education system, financial literacy, econ, these kind of things and millennials were really getting hit by all these other things, like a 2008 crisis, and it was pre-COVID. The rise in student loan debt, high credit card utilization, a lack of pension and Social security. This generation has a really novel experience in their financial navigation, and they're not really highly financially literate. I think this is changing now for the younger generation, because as a pendulum swing against this, But that's a really horrible place to be starting at with a generation that has access to all this technology and all these possible beneficial tools, but also has low literacy, and all these detrimental things are coming online, like day trading on, sorry, I'm saying Robinhood, but like day trading on platforms, right? Like, so you have this incredible like conundrum, right? Of like benefits. And anyway, so that really spawned me and spurred me. The other thing that I saw was women our generation is the first generation to really be in the workforce at a meaningful level. So we just haven't had, like, the entire labor market has not had financial conversations and wealth generating conversations that are really meaningful or like speak to our narrative, because our narrative is new, getting master's degrees, having babies and working, being dual income households. Like, that's all a new conversation for this generation. So I just felt very passionate that technology has this opportunity to scale. We can have these conversations around behavior change, financial wealth, and provide services that help people not only kind of incrementally shift their behavior, but give them the right banking tool at the right time, like help them utilize credit or help them save or coach them in whatever area they want to be coached.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the business model? Like, that's what I'm trying to get at. Like,
there we go.
How does the business actually work, and how does the business make money?
So it's two ways. It's a subscription model. So, you come in, and in the consumer world, you can pay, somewhere between $4 to $12, and then you get access to, a coach, and then all the kind of AI driven tools. We also have coaching that you can kind of, you can get more kind of in-depth coaching. You can bank with us. So we have a savings account that you can start. So there's revenue in the banking services we provide too. And then on top, then the second way is, of course, we sell that subscription into employers as like an employee perk. So you can kind of think of us like a Headspace, where you pay, Headspace has a consumer app that people pay a subscription for, but they also sell as an employer perk through insurance and employee benefits.
Super interesting. And so how do people find out about you? I mean, are you, who's the target audience, and how are they finding you?
It's a great question. You have such good business questions. So
I'm just curious, because my brain always goes to, I don't know that I've got good business questions, but I'm asking like, okay, my kids need this. Yes. Oh, wait, should I use this for my company? And I'm genuinely like, wait, how can we partner?
Who is this for? Yeah.
And let's get this going.
I love it. Let's do it. So we specifically look at kind of the 20 to 35-year-old range, but we're really helping, it really is open to anyone. We're helping anyone who wants to understand the basic financial management, like spend less than you earn, pay attention to your spending, have a savings account, you have a savings habit, and then let's get your high interest debt off your books. So we help you, consolidate student loan debt or consolidate credit cards, and then be able to pay that off over time. And then of course, from an education perspective, we have different services for those things, but then if you have kind of graduated to investing conversations, there's a whole world of investing, how do you diversify? What's risk? How do you protect your wealth? Like I think in your world, the conversation, we have these great legacy wealth checklists and like retirement checklists that say, like, do you have a will and testament? Do you have an HOA? Like,
It's such a brilliant business. I love your business. I really love your business. First of all, there's such a need, and I'm not leaning in to like do a full scan of like who else is doing this. So I'm curious if you have competitors, and if so, what's your kind of differentiator?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. In fintech, there are a million different fintechs, right?
For sure.
It's not, the issue, I think, mostly is that they're very vertical. So there aren't a lot there's like Mint does budgeting. Chime is a checking account that gets you early payday access, right? Digit that helps you save. Like, you have these kind of bifurcated or kind of separate products that all touch one area of your financial life.
That doesn't help.
It's not holistic. So so we try and move. And again, we're at the basic level. We're not trading for you. We're not, we have partnerships with people like Public, but we're not, getting into the wealth management side of it. We're really looking at how do we create a holistic approach and our differentiator that ties to your actual habits and behavior.
Right.
So
the behavior part, almost like Noom.
It
like
is,
where,
yes.
Right. Where you're like, okay, well, let's actually have mindfulness around eating. This is mindfulness around spending and saving.
Yep, that's it. And it really does give you incredible insight. I mean, I love it because it gives me insight.
What have you learned about people's relationship with money? Are there themes that you've seen? That's hard to summarize in a like, okay, here we go, let's go. It's like speed dating for finance.
Right. No, but there are there are human themes in money for sure. And two of them that are most prominent are fear and shame. Because you start, and it's always, we talk a lot about money stories. It always goes back to your root. Like you asked me about my family, right? Like there are things you learned in childhood, the experiences you had, and then what you carried over to your adulthood and the habits that you've created around that. And all that, has evolved and changes. But the more you connect these things, the more you see behavioral shifts. So you can say, okay, I am stressed. So I do this. I buy things online, right?
Of course, you get a little pop. I did that during COVID. Right. I was like, holy shit, what are all these boxes?
Yes, exactly.
I had little weak moments of shopping.
Shauna, you are not alone. Our data shows that everyone did that. Do not worry.
It's funny.
But what it allows are stats and the insights that we can give you by you logging your stress levels. We do these bumble swipe type things for your transactions. So you can like, dislike, neutral, swipe your transactions. But what that does over time is it gives you a picture of, oh yeah, I tend to spike on my online sales in the early part of the month and I am more stressed at that time. Or I really don't like every time I have that, I don't know, Target bill, I don't like it. Like, and we can surface that up to you and say, hey, that was the fifth time you swiped, left on that transaction. What's going on? Do you want to talk about it? Kind of thing. So it just puts that mindfulness. Yeah. You said mindfulness.
Is there anything around like social good or conscious spending around just kind of mindfulness around like who you're actually doing business with?
Yes.
In general?
That's part of an education. And there's a demand for that in our demographic. People really care. We talk a lot about who you bank with too, like what implications you have, because that's really the most power you have in your dollar is where you bank and where you invest, right? Because that's really where the money is going back into society and as it inform the loans and things like that. So there's questions about that. And there's also, we have education around mindfulness practices and where you prioritize. We help people, we kind of automate, you connect your accounts and we automate a budget that we say, hey, this is what you've been doing. You can change it.
Interesting.
But
how have you funded it? I know you've raised money.
Yes, we've raised money. Yep.
And what was that experience like as a woman? I know that's like a thing.
It's
a thing. I've had a lot of women on the podcast and I have a lot of friends who have, been startup founders and get 2% of VC money. So how has that been for you?
It's been an incredible challenge. Yeah. And it's been an incredible self-realization experience we've bootstrapped. I have a co-founder who's an amazing woman. She's out of Sun Valley, Idaho. I met her in 2019. So we were able to bootstrap up until just 2021. The reality of that is from a kind of growth perspective and early stage startup is that means we didn't quite have the same kind of capital as everyone else that we were competing with. So there were some, we definitely retained more like ownership and directional control, but there are trade-offs to that.
The speed is lower.
Yep. You just have less money to spend.
Yeah.
And then when we raised, so there are a couple nuances to it. One, we are in Seattle, so it's not a highly consumer fintech friendly environment. So I definitely had to go outside of Seattle to raise, which was interesting because your networks, it really is about networks. I've learned a ton about VC. And by the way, it is like a popularity game. It's a lot of FOMO.
And there's interesting, like, I get it. Because I'm around a lot of founders and the pedigree stuff that you're like, oh, this person got funded out of like no experience at a Stanford. Is that a Stanford thing?
Yes.
Is that it's just ageism, all of it.
Yep. Yeah. And it's who you know. And And I would say there is a reality for women that you do have to be better than
You have to be better.
your
I would imagine that
counterparts.
you're probably really good at pitching though, because you're so polished and so
Sweet.
confident. You might have just been in that like, okay, I'm having like imposter syndrome. I'm just like faking it till I make it. But I can see you being actually really good at it.
Thank you. I mean, we did get it funded. We did a seed round, which was amazing, but it took there was a lot of, I don't know if it maybe imposter, but there was a lot of
like, am I onto something or should I not be onto this? Like,
exactly the questioning of like, I really believe this is an incredible business that I am going to, and I had to, what the big switch in my mind was like, wait a minute, I'm going to make you money. I'm not going to you like as a supplicant, like you investor.
Yeah, I'm not looking for some sort of favor.
Like
I'm actually like, this is actually making you money. You should be so lucky to get a seat at this table.
Exactly. Yeah.
And 100%. Yeah. What kind of indications are they looking for as far as product market fit?
It's interesting. So at the seed round, you're looking at TAM, target available market. They're looking at team, for sure. And traction is something that depends on what you're doing. Like if you're in the SaaS business, I think traction, they are looking for traction and sales and pipeline and go to market and all that. Mm-hmm. Consumer is also, but I think consumer is more focused on how are you going to capture a significant portion of this population. And then you kind of think, and then tell me your plan to monetize, but what is the value prop that you can get a lot of people on? Because that's what you need. You need a lot of people on your product, believing in you and trusting you. And then you can kind of figure out.
And coming back for more and coming back for more. Signing on for the subscription. And what's your marketing strategy, Ben?
Yeah.
I know you've got an awesome newsletter, an awesome podcast.
Yes.
What's the podcast called so that people can find it?
Oh, thank you. It's just the Navit, NAV.IT Navit podcast. We're on season 4 now. Actually, it's been great. Yes. But to your point, it's a lot of content marketing. So we do a lot of, and partnerships. So, we fit in that niche kind of between. Are you doing
targeted ads at all? Like
we do.
Social media target that? Because in my mind, I'm like, this is the kind of thing I can totally see just coming at
as you scroll
and
through.
Women just scroll. And of course I'm the one who's like, oh, bing, I just got this.
Look, yes, let's do it. They love you.
I'm the dream target audience.
You are the dream, yes.
Yes. I'm a consumer of things. Yes. We've talked about this.
Yes, I think it's great. And that's also just, for me, thinking about that, I am too. And I've also doing this mindfulness practice around money has made me just realize what I prioritize in my life. And I love to travel. I'm not going to give that up, even when I'm not making a massive salary, because I'm an entrepreneur and I have these things like that is just something I do. Right. And COVID has, but anyways, it's spending your money in a way that fulfills your life as opposed to trying to restrict or feel guilt about it or all these things. Right. Just knowing yourself. So
it's so good. I think it's just like an incredible business. How are you, like you said, like prioritizing you're an entrepreneur. How are you prioritizing your downtime? Like, what do you do to kind of unwind and keep your mental health in check?
That is an ever evolving question, my friend. And COVID actually for me was a blessing because it just to some degree, it eliminated the need to travel in the same way that I was traveling before, and kind of root in my son and, keep his survival going and mine. So my downtime, I am pretty protective. So when he comes home till bedtime, I really no calls, I really do protect my time, especially around him, that I can get back online if I need to, but, nature and exercise are my thing. You said Peloton like that. I hate to be cheesy but it saved me.
I have never assessed how many of the 150 plus interviews I've done, but a lot of people are getting saved, although their sock is in the toilet. But a lot of people were saved by Peloton during COVID. So my ultimate question for you is, what fuels you?
Oh, I love it. As I actually reflect on this story I just told you, I am driven to learn and to make change in the world where I can. And I think I'm getting older now. So now it's another question of have I done enough? Do I need to slow down a little bit? Who am I as a 40-year-old woman, not a 20-year-old woman? But I am very fueled by major kind of societal questions that I think that I can push an answer for and find solutions to. which
Well, you're
sounds really
doing an
silly.
incredible work. No, it doesn't sound silly at all. It's super inspiring. And I love your story. And I am so psyched to have another female badass CEO, like building this cool company in Seattle.
Thank you.
And anyone who's listening, are there anything that the community can do to help support you?
Yes, I think, well, following us, downloading the app, using us, giving us feedback. We have, hello at Navit, or it's Navit Money is now our website, navitmoney.com. But also, yeah, I'm learning, I am always open to making connections to also learn about people's money stories and hear their pain points and kind of how their trajectory has affected, them in their careers.
Thank you for listening to the What Fuels You podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, and follow us on social media to keep up with the latest news and episodes. You can also contact us at podcast@fueltalent.com to provide feedback, ask questions, and share topics or guests you would like us to cover in the future. We hope you feel inspired by our guests and that we have helped fuel your day. Join us next time for another episode of What Fuels You.